My last video, we discussed value engineering suggestions for a project owner so he could reduce his costs on his house when I just completed on the north shore of the Sam Rayburn Reservoir in East Texas. And then he wanted to add value back into the house. So this video, we're going to show you what we added back into the house. So let's get started. The next value item that I proposed for the owner was this passive house design and construction. Now, this started back in Germany back several years ago, and it's caught on in the States, mostly with the custom home builders. And the concept of the passive house design and construction is for energy efficient house with comfort and affordability. There's 5 main principles to the passive house design and construction: solar orientation, additional and continuous insulation, air tightness of your house, high performance windows, and high performance of heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems. Of this passive house design, let's look at the air tightness and what we did for them on this project. You see the 3D rendering here. On all of the exterior walls, we installed a protective wrap premium energy seal sealer, and it goes underneath the 2x6 wall on the exterior. And on the interior of the 2x6 wall, we silicone caulked at the base plate. And then we also sealed all the penetrations from the first floor into the attic space. And the last thing that we did was that we tape sealed all the exterior OSB joints on the exterior wall. So let's look at the added insulation for the passive house and design. And here's a cross section of the house here to show the insulation. The code in this area, which is out of the IRC, calls for an R38 insulation for the ceiling area. It's a zone 3A. And for the walls on the exterior, it calls for an R20 or an R13 wall assembly, which means it incorporates the studs and the windows and the doors. Now, what the passive house does, it wants you to double that insulation. And I looked at the price of that. To double the insulation, about an R60 for the ceiling and an R40 for the exterior of the walls. And the price was about rough cost of $3,500. And if you do the math on the air conditioning electric costs, you're only saving about $10 a month in electric costs with that additional insulation. So if you multiply it out, $120 per year. So the payback for the added insulation is about 30 years. So I suggested to them that, you can save that money and maybe upgrade the air conditioning and ventilation system. And so he was okay with that. Now, the other thing that I suggested to him was a vented attic space. Since he wasn't going to have any mechanical equipment up there, or he didn't want it for storage, then I just went from the traditional vented attic space and just keeps that attic moving with air, and there's less moisture up there and less things that you have to worry about. So that's the design that we went with right here. Okay, let's look at what we added for the air conditioning and ventilation systems. So looking at the mechanical room that we laid out here, one of the things we did for ventilation was bring in an energy recovery ventilator. And both of the units we put on the first floor, as we talked about in the other video. So let's look at the upgraded air conditioning and ventilation system that is specified and installed for this owner. We installed a Carrier 5-speed heat pump AC unit, and he wanted a higher SEER rating, so we got an 18 SEER model, and the code in the area calls for a 14 SEER rating. And as you see, it's $170 per year in savings. And the additional cost for the 18 SEER model over the 14 SEER model was $1,400. The other item of rating in a heat pump system is called the HSPF rating. It's Heating Seasonal Performance Factor. The average is 8.2, and this model's an 11, which Carrier says is a super efficient model, which is going to save you an additional $6 during the cooling months. And then for ventilation, as we said, energy recovery ventilator, we installed a Panasonic IntelliBalance 100 energy recovery ventilator for this 1,800 square foot, 9-foot high ceiling. Now you'll have to size your accordingly, but it's accessible in the hallway, as you see there, with the controls. And as we know, the ventilation system brings fresh air into the house, because now we have the house airtight, as we showed before. And we bring it in fresh air, it's going to filter out the pollen and the pollution as it comes through the filtering system. And as it comes through, the transfer of the cooling to the incoming heating air was going to save you electrical costs there. So what we figured was about $50 in savings in electrical costs per month for this unit and for this house. And the other item that we added to add comfortability to the house is a roofing foil underlayment. It's a reflective 40 mil product that deflects 97% of the sun's rays, so it keeps the house comfortable during the summer months. Let's look at a summary of the added values of this passive house design and construction. And I call it a quasi-passive house because we didn't upgrade the insulation on the project. And he saved $3,500 on the insulation, and we put it against the upgraded air conditioning system and the energy recovery ventilator. So if you see here, he saves $3,500 for insulation, and he put it to the air conditioning system, which was an additional $1,400 over the SEER model of 14 to increase to the SEER model of 18, and a heat pump system. And then we spent $2,700 on the Panasonic 100 energy recovery ventilator. So the net of this is $600 add to the project, and he will receive $250 in savings of electrical costs per year. So that gives you a good analysis there. There were two more items that we added value to the house, both in the mechanical room. One was a water purification system. It was a Pentar Pelican system. And the other item that we added was a 1 horsepower pump. We increased the pressure inside from 35 psi to 65 psi. So here's the water purification system, 7 gallons per minute. And it's got a pre-filter, as you see here, sediment filter, and then 2 tanks to give you great tasting water, softer skin, and eliminates water buildup. Now the price of this thing was about $3,200, and installed was about $4,000. And it's got an ultralight there, as you see, and then the 1 horsepower pump to increase the pressure inside the house. So this gives you an idea how to use value engineering to increase value into your projects. Now, the next video I'm going to get into value engineering on the structural stability of this house. The owner had mentioned to me that at least 2 or 3 times a year, high winds would come off Sam Rayburn Lake and knock trees down in the subdivision. In fact, he had trees in his front yard that he ended up removing. So I implemented some structural stability into his house. I'm going to show you the value engineering that we did for that to combat not only the high winds, but tornadic winds, as he is in the tornado alley of East Texas. So I appreciate you watching, and I wish you success on your next project.
Success. Success. Success.